Imagine you're just going about your life. You're maybe at work or at the gym or just running errands. All of a sudden, you get this email and your heart sinks. You get a weird feeling in your stomach. That email is about your account closure, about the fact that your airline miles have expired. Does that ring a bell? Well, unfortunately, some of us may have been in this sort of a situation. We lead busy lives, we often forget to track a million things, and something always slips under the radar. Miles and points are no different. But imagine looking at that dreaded email, realizing that you've just lost 100,000 points that were sitting in your account that you could have redeemed for a future stay or a flight. That really hurts. And you don't want to be in that situation. I've been traveling for 15 years, and I would be lying if I were to say that I've never heard this story from a friend of mine. You always know someone who forgot to keep their account active and then realized that he or she just lost a lot of miles and points sitting in their account. Believe it or not, that's a lot of money that has just gone poof into thin air. And you don't want to be in that situation. Our goal at the Travel Dialogue podcast is to make you a smarter traveler. And in this episode, we are going to discuss exactly this very, very important topic about miles and points expiration policies. If you have miles and points sitting in your account, they may be in different frequent flyer accounts, and you must remember the fact that each airline and hotel program has their own policy. They all have different ways and means in which they let their currencies expire, and they also have different policies pertaining to how you can keep your miles and points active. Now, you won't believe this, but if you actually look up statistics online, you will see that millions, if not tens of millions, of miles and points expire every year unused. Now, that's just not saying that, oh, you know what, my miles are gone, my points are gone. No, that is a lot of money lost that you could have redeemed for travel. If you're like me and have been traveling long enough using your miles and points, I'm pretty sure that you're also monitoring your loyalty program accounts like your bank account, trying to protect that future check that you can cash when you have to travel. So if you want to protect your miles and points accounts, aka your travel savings accounts, then you're at the right place. Hello, and welcome to episode number 6 of the Travel Dialogue podcast. Today, we're going to talk about miles and points expiry, how to prevent them from expiring in the first place, and how to clearly understand the various policies of airlines and hotel programs. So let's get started. So before we start going into great detail about miles and points expiration policies and start looking at individual policies, one thing that we really need to understand from a first principle perspective is what really leads your miles and points to expire. Now, in this case, there are two different types of expirations. Number one, absolute expiration. So let's say you earned your miles in January of 2023, and you then earn miles again in February of 2024. As per the policy of your airline or hotel program, your miles or points will expire after 12 months of inactivity. So what happened here is that at the end of February 2025, your points expired. So let's say that you accumulated 20,000 points in year 1 and then 30,000 points in year 2. And you saw that when those points expired, you lost all of your 50,000 points that you had earned in the program. Now, why am I giving this example? Now, this is an example of absolute expiration. Now, what is absolute expiration? It basically means that once the deadline is reached for reinstating or keeping your account active, you lose everything that is there in your account, no matter when you accumulated them. You get the drift? So you may have earned those miles in 2017, 2020, 2023, and 2024, but because your account was inactive for 1 year, you not just lost the miles that you earned in 23, 24, but you also lost all the miles that you'd earned before in the program over the years. Now, what is the reason for explaining this? Because there are really two different types of expiration policies. The first one, as I just explained to you, is the absolute expiration. What is the second one? The second one is rolling expiration policies. Now let's take the same example as we took earlier. You earned 20,000 points in January 2023. You earned 30,000 points in January 2024. As per the policy of your particular program, it says that your miles and points will expire 2 years after you earn them. Now, why have I specified this particular clause? Because in this case, what happens is, unlike the previous example, you're only losing those miles that you earned at a specific date instead of losing the entire chunk. Now, let's come back to the example. You earned 20,000 miles in January of 2023. You earned 30,000 miles in January of 2024. Now, what happened in the end of January 2025 is, once your account statement closed and February 2025 started, you lost those 20,000 points that you had earned in January 2023. See the difference? Unlike the previous example, where you lost all of your points due to inactivity, no matter when you earn them, in this case, you only lost that chunk that you had earned 2 years back. The chunk that you earned in 2024 would not expire until January of 2026. So that's an example of absolute versus rolling expiration. Rolling expiration is when you lose particular chunks of miles based on the earning date, and you only lose that particular chunk that was earned and that is expired. Whereas in case of absolute expiration, no matter when you earn those miles, you will lose all of them due to inactivity. Now, why is this differentiation important? It is very important because different airlines and hotel programs around the world have different types of policies. They not only have different time frames, but they also have rolling and absolute expiration dates. We'll be going over certain examples to show you how these actually work in the real world, and also have a look at terms and conditions and where you should pay attention to make sure that you're not caught off guard. We'll be also going over some clauses to have a look at what really qualifies as an activity that can help you keep your account active to prevent closure. At the same time, there are also some innovative tricks and tips that we will discuss to keep your accounts active. Now, while we have the discussion, we are going to break down our conversation into 3 different categories. For the purpose of analysis, we'll be first focusing on credit card rewards programs. So these are simply the credit card rewards that you have earned thanks to a credit card that you have from a bank. And let's say you have American Express, you may have earned American Express membership rewards points. If you have Chase cards, you may have earned Chase Ultimate Rewards points, and so on and so forth. So each bank has their own rewards currency, and you have a card in that currency and you earn points based on whatever stipulations that particular card has. So that is an example of credit card rewards program. The second category is simply airline miles. We'll have a look at some of the airlines around the world from different continents and see the similarities and differences when it comes to airline mile expiration policies. We'll also go over certain tips and tricks to help you keep your account active. Last but not the least, we'll be focusing on hotel programs. Hotel programs continue to be one of my favorites because I tend to extract a lot of value to book some really aspirational properties. We'll be going over some of the top hotel programs in the world to have a look at what their policies really look like and how you can stay ahead of the curve. All right, then at the outset, I mentioned that we will be going over a few examples because while it's great to explain concepts and theory, it always helps to have a look at some practical examples and see how things really work out in the real world. So right now, we are on the website of American Express. And in case you don't know, American Express has their own points currency called the American Express Membership Rewards Points. And the way this currency works is if you have any card issued anywhere in the world from American Express that earns these kinds of points, you will accumulate currency in that particular country for American Express. So just to give an example, if you have an American Express membership points card in India, you will accumulate points in one central account. However, that is specific to the country. So you're not able to move points between countries. If you have American Express credit cards in the US that issue membership rewards points, they will be all accumulated in one central account. So you will usually see an account number, and that is where all your points are accumulated. So even if you have, let's say, 3 cards that all earn membership rewards points, what happens is they're all pooled into one central account. You don't have to move your points one way or the other. Let's say you have card 1, 2, and 3. Each one of them is earning points. The points are pooled into one account. And let's say even if you decide that you have to cancel card number 3, you don't really have to move your points anywhere because it's just one account. You can get rid of card number 3 and your points remain the same. Now, what really constitutes the expiration of your membership rewards points? If you look at the American Express Help Center over here, you will see that membership rewards points have no expiration date. However, points may be forfeited as described in the program terms and conditions. Now, what does this really mean? And this is standard procedure, and you will see this rule applied by many banks around the world, where if you have points in their currency, they will let you keep your points active as long as your account is open. So in many cases, what happens is people have points accumulating in their account with American Express US, and they haven't used their card for months. Their points are still okay because as per the terms and conditions, the points have no expiration dates and the points will remain active as long as your card account is open and in good standing. In this particular case, it talks about terms and conditions and the forfeiture of points. Now, that is usually an area which is different from expiry. Forfeiture of points usually happens when, let's say, you spent money on the card and you did not pay your balance in full at the end of the month. What the bank can essentially do is, let's say you spent $1,000 and you earned 2,000 points in the month, but you didn't pay your balance in full, or you did not pay your balance, then the bank can essentially deny you those 2,000 points for that particular month. However, that is very different from the points actually expiring. So your account may be closed by American Express if they think that you violated their terms and conditions in certain ways, or you've done some sort of stuff that they don't like in terms of the kind of spends that you're doing on your card. There are a lot of different things why a bank may frown upon what you're doing, but that has nothing to do with the points simply expiring. So for 99% of us, if you have American Express membership rewards points in the US, what it essentially means that your points are safe and sound as long as your account is active. All right then, let's look at one more really popular currency in the United States, which is also a transferable points currency. This is called Chase Ultimate Rewards Points. Chase Ultimate Rewards Points are similar to American Express membership rewards points in the sense that you can use them to redeem for travel or transfer them to points transfer partners with Chase. However, there is a slight difference. Let's have a look at this article first, and then we can go into further detail. Your Chase Ultimate Rewards points do not expire as long as your credit card account is open. However, if you close your card account before redeeming or transferring your rewards, you will no longer have those points. Unfortunately, if your account is closed for missed payments, program misuse, or other reasons detailed in your user agreement, you will forfeit your points. Why am I reading the details of the terms and conditions here? Because even though American Express and Chase have transferable points programs, expiration works slightly differently with Chase. I gave you the example of card number 1, 2, and 3. Let's say you have 3 cards with Chase Ultimate Rewards that earn Chase Ultimate Rewards points. Card number 1, card number 2, card number 3. Let's say you have 20,000 points on card number 1, 30,000 points on card number 2, and 50,000 points on card number 3. You have a total of 100,000 points. Now, when you log into your Chase Ultimate Rewards account, you will see that you have 100,000 points in total. Your points don't expire. However, let's say your annual fee is billed and you decide that for some reason you need to cancel card number 3. Now, bear in mind that unlike American Express, Chase actually accumulates points in the individual card account and then adds up the total balance to give you your Chase Ultimate Rewards balance. This is different from Amex, where Amex doesn't give you a breakup of individual accounts, but just gives you a total points balance. In this case, what would happen is, let's say you decide to cancel card number 3, you have 50,000 points. What you need to do before you cancel your card is transfer those 50,000 points to either card number 1 and card number 2. Let's say you decide that you want to transfer those 50,000 points to card number 1. After you transfer those points, card number 1 will have 70,000 points and card number 2 will have 30,000 points. You are now free to cancel card number 3 without having to lose any of your points. So let's say you cancel card number 3, log back into your account, you will still see that your account balance still shows a total of 100,000 ultimate rewards points. So these are a couple of examples of transferable programs, and again, there are finer nuances and intricacies that are often there with these programs. I gave you the example of how in case of Amex, everything is pooled into one single account. In case of Chase, you have different cards, and then you can move your points around based on which card you want to keep open. Nevertheless, bear in mind that in most cases, what happens is when you have a bank credit card rewards program offering you points on a credit card, more often than not, your points remain active as long as your card account is open and you have not violated any terms and conditions of the program. So, in simple words, your card account is active, your points are good to go, they won't expire. All right, then let's have a look at the second category now, which is airline miles. In this case, we're going to have a look at 3 different airlines from 3 different countries and see how their expiration policies stack up. Firstly, we are looking at Delta Airlines based out of the United States. And in this case, it's pretty simple. If you look at the terms and conditions, in case of Delta Airlines, if you have earned your miles, they simply don't expire. Period. Now, this is very simple, very easy to understand. Irrespective of whether you have any activity in your account, it doesn't matter. Let's say you have 20,000 miles in your account and you haven't done anything, haven't flown Delta, haven't earned miles on the credit card, done absolutely nothing, your miles will still be okay. And this is exactly what the terms and conditions say. Under the Sky Miles mileage expiration policy, miles do not expire. Delta reserves the right to deactivate or close an account and accordingly remove all the miles in the account under the following circumstances. And in this case, it's things like fraudulent activity, a member is deceased, a member does not respond to repeated communication, or creates additional accounts. So a lot of these things don't really apply to most of us. Very simply put, if you have Delta miles, they don't expire. Now, let's have a look at yet another program. And this one is Singapore Airlines. And there's a reason why we are looking at this program and not some other program. Remember, at the onset of the episode, I spoke about the difference between rolling expiry versus absolute expiry. Now, you really have to pay attention to this one because Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer program is an example of rolling expiry. And why? Let's have a look. So, here's what the terms and conditions say. KrisFlyer Basic, KrisFlyer Elite Silver, and KrisFlyer Gold members only. A member's KrisFlyer miles will expire 3 years at 23:59 hours Singapore time on the last day of the equivalent month in which they were earned. Now listen carefully. For example, KrisFlyer miles credited to a member's KrisFlyer account in July 2017 will expire at 23:59 hours Singapore time on 31st July 2020. Now this is rolling expiry. What happens in this case, as you saw in the example given below, let's say this person has earned 20,000 Singapore Airlines KrisFlyer miles in July 2017. He is going to lose out on all of those 20,000 miles if he doesn't find a way to keep them active before the 31st of July 2020. Now, let's say he earned these miles in July 2017 and then also earned 20,000 miles in July 2018. What would happen after 31st July 2020 is that he would only lose those 20,000 miles which he had earned in 2017. The ones he had earned in 2018 would be good until the end of July 2021. So the next block of miles which he earned in July 2018 would only expire on 31st of July 2021. So you get the gist. In case of Delta, the miles don't expire at all. In case of Singapore Airlines, what happens is your miles expire based on the block or the time at which you earn them. So you don't lose everything, but you lose one chunk of miles based on the 3-year window. So every time you earn your Singapore Airlines miles, the clock starts ticking and you will lose those miles 3 years after that particular month ends. Now, let's move on to yet another loyalty program, and this is the Air India loyalty program. So in case of Air India, you earn Maharaja points, and they have a different policy compared to the likes of Singapore Airlines and Delta Airlines. Let's have a look at terms and conditions 3.25. Maharaja points credited to a member's account will remain valid until redeemed, expired, or the account is merged, expired, or terminated, whichever occurs first. If you look at the language over here, the reason why they're saying merged is also because of the fact that, with the recent merger of Vistara and Air India, a lot of us had our accounts merged into a single Air India account, and our Vistara points became Maharaja points at a 1:1 ratio. That's the reason that language could be there in the first place. Okay, moving on. These points are valid for redemption for a period of 24 months plus the month of travel, after which they will expire on the last day of the 24th month if not redeemed. However, if a member undertakes a qualifying flight with Air India within this 24-month period, all Maharaja points in the member's account will be extended for an additional 24 months from the date of the latest qualifying flight. Here's the difference in terms and conditions. In this case, what Air India says is all of the points will be extended for an additional 24 months. See the difference? In case of Singapore, what happens is you lose that particular chunk, but you keep the next chunk. In case of Air India, if you don't keep your account active for 24 months, you lose everything. But if you have some activity, then you keep everything. That's the difference between absolute and rolling expiration. Now let's go further. If a member undertakes a qualifying flight with Air India within the 24-month period, all Maharaja points in the member's account will be extended for an additional 24 months from the date of the latest qualifying flight. This rule applies to flights undertaken on or after April 2, 2024. It should be noted that Vistara flights taken on or before 11 November 2024 will not be considered for the extension. In this case, what happens is, though, that unlike some of the other programs where you can have different kinds of activities qualifying to keep your points active, Air India makes it quite explicit that what it deems as qualifying activity is booking a flight with Air India. And that is different from simply transferring over points. In case of Air India, that's pretty explicit that they're saying that to keep your account active, you need to take a flight within 24 months. Now to recap then, we had a look at 3 different programs. We have Air India, which talks about absolute expiration. All of your points expire once the clock runs out. We have Singapore Airlines, which talks about rolling expiration. You only lose the chunk that you earned on a particular date and you keep the remaining. And the last one is no expiration. So there are a few airlines like Delta and United which will let you keep your miles even if your account is inactive. Your miles don't expire no matter what happens, unless there is some fraudulent activity and your account gets flagged. In that case, you have to forfeit your points. Other than that, you keep your miles even if there is no activity whatsoever. So I hope I was able to cover some of the nuances here. There are 3 different types of airline programs from 3 different countries that I covered. There are different policies when it comes to expiry dates and the way they calculate how many miles should expire or whether they should expire in the first place at all. I hope that I was able to clarify some of the different policies that are there when it comes to airline miles and their expiry dates. Now we will be looking at 2 of the biggest hotel loyalty programs in the world. We will be starting with Hilton. Hilton has a massive footprint all over the world. And as you can see that whenever you're looking to travel, if you try to look for a Hilton property in most parts of the world, you usually find one there. Over the last 15 years or so, I have stayed at Hilton properties in 6 different continents, and it's really been a great experience looking at the massive reach that the program has. However, what we're really concerned about in this case is making sure that those hard-earned Hilton points do not expire. Now let's have a look at Hilton's website and what does it say about points expiration. The FAQ section over here says, do my Hilton Honors points expire? Hilton Honors points expire after 24 consecutive months of inactivity. To keep your Hilton Honors account active and avoid your points expiring, stay at a hotel in the Hilton portfolio, earn points with the Hilton Honors credit card, earn or redeem points with any Hilton Honors partner, or buy points or donate points or register for a Hilton Honors promotion. Now, in this case, it's pretty cut and dry. We don't need to discuss this in more detail. 24 months of inactivity and your points expire immediately. However, in case of Hilton, it's very easy to keep your points active. Let's say you have a credit card that helps you transfer points from your credit card to Hilton at whatever ratio. You simply have to transfer a chunk of 1,000 points and you should be good to go for the next 2 years. Now, this particular strategy could be really helpful for people who want to accumulate a lot of Hilton points for an aspirational stay in the future, but for the time being don't have enough activity in the Hilton program to keep it active from a stay perspective, or they don't have a co-branded credit card to keep their points active. So in this case, Hilton makes it very easy. You can simply buy a small chunk of points to keep your account active, or transfer from a qualifying credit card. Even a small chunk of 1,000 points, when you convert that to Hilton points, should be enough to once again reset that clock for the next 2 years. Now let's move over to the next one. Last but not the least, this is actually the biggest hotel loyalty program in the world after Marriott Bonvoy merged with Starwood Hotels. The Marriott Bonvoy program is the largest program in terms of the number of people, and the size of the program in of itself is massive. If you have Marriott Bonvoy points like I do, what do you need to be cognizant about? Let's have a look at clause 1.6G with Marriott Bonvoy and what it talks pertaining to expiration. Points expiration policy. Members must remain active in the loyalty program to retain points they accumulate. If a member account is inactive for 24 consecutive months, that member account will forfeit all accumulated points. Members can remain active in the loyalty program and retain accumulated points by earning points or miles, redeeming points or purchasing points in the loyalty program at least once every 24 months, all subject to the exceptions described below. If a member does not maintain an active status for 5 consecutive years, the member's account may be deactivated. Once points are forfeited, the points cannot be reinstated, but a member can earn new points unless that member's account has been deactivated. To cut the long story short, this is pretty similar to the way Hilton looks at it. 2 years of inactivity and your points disappear. However, similar to Hilton, it is very easy to keep these points active. You can transfer from a credit card, earn on a co-branded credit card, or simply transfer your points out. Bear in mind that Marriott Bonvoy also helps you transfer your points from Marriott to Airlines at a ratio of 3:1 in many cases. So let's say you think that your points are about to expire and you simply decide to transfer out 6,000 Marriott Bonvoy points to convert into airline miles, and that will again reset the clock to the next 2 years. All right, then that wraps up the expiration policies. I hope I was able to clearly explain the 3 different types of programs and also cover enough ground in terms of credit cards, airline miles, as well as hotel points, and what the expiry policies look like from the perspective of both absolute and rolling expiration policies. Now, nobody wants to lose their miles and points. They expire. It's a terrible, terrible event to experience. However, there's one question that I'm often asked. What happens if my miles expire? What are my options? Are they just gone forever? Is there any way to get them back? Well, let's have a look at the policies and what you can really do and what the realistic options may be in this case. See, the goal here is, yes, you want your miles back. Nobody wants to lose their miles. However, airlines often impose a very, very high cost to get them back. And in most cases, that cost is very prohibitive if you compare that to simply buying airfare with that airline. Now, let me explain this with this example here. We are on Emirates.com. Their currency is called Skyward Miles. So You have all this literature over here: buying Skywards miles, giving and gifting miles, extending expiring miles. So let's have a look at this. If any of your Skyward miles are expiring soon, you can extend the validity for up to 12 months at a special rate. Just remember to extend your miles 3 months before their expiry date. Now, this is number one. This is a lot of work to do because you have to meticulously track that your miles are expiring in 3 months and then submit a request and pay the fee to extend them for another 12 months. Let's scroll down further. State expired Skywards miles. If any of your Skywards miles have expired in the last 6 months, you can reactivate them so that they are added back into the account. It costs just $20 per 1,000 miles, and you can reclaim up to 50,000 Skyward miles in a year. Now, this is exactly what I was talking at the start of the episode. What happens is when you lose your miles and points, not only that you lose them, but if you want them back in any shape or form, you are paying actual cash or money to get it back. Now, each airline and hotel program would have their own policy, but in this case, as you can see, Emirates' policy is pretty much in line with the rest of the industry. Some airlines and hotel chains may not let you reinstate miles and points at all. They might just say, once what is gone is gone. But whenever an airline or hotel chain lets you reinstate miles and points, you will see that the cost is quite steep, and you might as well buy a cash ticket as opposed to reinstating those miles. Let's do the math here. $20 per 1,000 miles. Let's say you have to book a ticket which costs 10,000 miles, you're already shelling out $200 just to reinstate your miles. Now, in this case, if you look at the Emirates terms and conditions, they will let you reclaim up to 50,000 Skywards miles in a year. You can already see it's not worth the hassle, because to reinstate 50,000 miles in a year, you will have to pay $1,000, which is a lot of money. Anyway, you might as well buy a ticket in cash. The answer to the question whether I should reinstate, whether I should extend, I would highly recommend that you don't, because in most cases, I would say that the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's really expensive. $20 per 1,000 miles is a lot of money, and it's just not worth paying that money to again book a ticket with miles where you can actually buy that ticket using cash. At the start of the episode, I mentioned the fact that it's a really horrible feeling when you realize that your miles or points have really expired and you have no avenue to look at. One tool that I've been using for a very, very long time is called Award Wallet. Now let's have a look at Award Wallet and why I would recommend Award Wallet. So how can Award Wallet help you? I have multiple loyalty program accounts. I would say probably more than 30 spread across different airline programs. So I have an account with Delta, American Airlines, United. You go to Asia, I have Cathay Pacific accounts, I have Singapore Airlines, I have Air India, and then I also have multiple hotel program loyalty accounts with IAG, Hilton, Marriott Bonvoy, World of Hyatt, and many more. Now, the one thing that Award Wallet does very well is once you sync all the information, it will create a dashboard for you where you have all your loyalty programs in one place. So not just your hotel programs and your airline mileage programs, but also your credit card loyalty programs. So in my case, it's American Express, Chase, Citibank, everything else, along with all of my airline and hotel loyalty programs. Another great feature about Award Wallet is that it will also let you track things like free night certificates. Because, in case of hotels, the free night certificates also expire 1 year post issuance. So that is really, really helpful. Award Wallet charges you a fee, which is billed annually. But in my opinion, it is really worth paying that annual fee with Award Wallet if you have multiple loyalty program accounts. And the great thing about Award Wallet is the fact that they can track over 625 loyalty programs. In my experience, I have found that most of the major loyalty programs around the world are covered, whether it is in the United States, India, most parts of Europe, Latin America, or so. If you are someone like me who has, let's say, more than 20 loyalty program accounts and you have mileage balances that are quite significant and sitting in different accounts, I would highly, highly recommend that you have the subscription. Now, in addition to also setting up your loyalty program accounts and sending you alerts before your miles and points expire. You can also sync your travel itineraries with our wallet, and you can also track your itineraries in the apps. And as you can see over here, you will see reminders if your points are about to expire. You will also see your itineraries synced in one place. And I found this very, very useful when I'm booking trips. So let's say I have an email address that is linked to my wallet account. Not only do I get alerts when my miles and points are about to expire, I'm also able to track my itinerary. This is particularly useful when you have a very complex itinerary and you have multiple airlines synced up together. So, for example, in one of my most recent trips, I went to Krabi. On the way, I flew via Bangkok. On the way back, I flew via Singapore with a transit in Singapore. So I had multiple bookings, different airline bookings, different hotel bookings in 2 different countries, 3 different cities. And it was really helpful because I kept getting alerts throughout my trip about the next steps. And at the same time, obviously, it was tracking my miles and points balances, as well as things like flight status, as you can see over here. So the key points covered in this segment are: number 1, that if you're looking to extend the validity of your miles and points, and that's something that I would not recommend in most cases. Second, to take preventive measures, you can use tools like Award Wallet, especially if you're someone like me who travels a lot and has mileage balances spread across multiple accounts. If you simply have smaller balances and only a few accounts, you can just set up a spreadsheet and set reminders on your phone. That way, it makes a more cost-effective and easier way to track smaller and fewer number of accounts. All right then, so in summary, I hope I was able to clearly explain some key concepts about the way miles and points expirations work. Number 1, the difference between absolute and rolling expiration. And I hope that you got a good understanding of how these rolling expirations work and how you need to be cognizant about when certain blocks of miles may expire compared to other programs where all of your miles may expire completely. Secondly, what qualifying activities mean. In certain cases, you actually have to take a flight in 24 months to help your mileage clock reset. In certain cases, it's simply helpful to just transfer some points from your credit card to your airline or hotel, and that is enough to reset the clock. Thirdly, I hope you're able to understand the fact that it is really, really expensive to reinstate lost miles and points, and it generally doesn't make sense to pay a hefty fee to reinstate miles that you've lost or extend the validity of your miles that are about to expire very soon. And last but not the least, you can use applications and tools to track your miles and points like a pro. And I would highly recommend that you use Award Wallet. You will find the link in the description below to sign up for Award Wallet. It's a tool that I've been using for many years, and I'm very, very happy with the way it works. It's pretty easy to use and helps me track all my balances in my accounts very, very effectively. Sends me alerts whenever my miles or points are about to expire. All right then, that wraps up episode number 6 of the Travel Dialogue podcast. I hope this episode was informative and educative and you learned something new today about travel. Subscribe to our channel, the Travel Dialogue podcast on YouTube. Like, share, comment, all the good stuff is most welcome. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at travel_dialogue, or also look us up on Facebook at the Travel Dialogue Podcast, and we can continue the conversation there. You can support the podcast by clicking on one of the links in the description below and support us via PayPal, and there are plenty other methods to get in touch as well. So that's a wrap for episode number 6. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you soon in episode number 7. Until then, have a good one.